All right, welcome back to DodgerHeads. Matt, it's good to have you back with us. We're here because last night there was some super fascinating news. A report came out from ESPN's Jeff Passan about what the 2020 season might look like. And I figured we'd have a good conversation to talk about some pros and some cons and some of the just straight up weird stuff that's featured in this report, as well as MLB's response. So, for those that aren't aware, let me give you a quick overview of what Passan's article said. From his piece, it says the plan would dictate that all 30 teams play games at stadiums with no fans in the Phoenix area. Again, this is a plan that MLB and the Players Association have reportedly had conversations about. They would be played at Chase Field, 10 other spring training facilities, and perhaps other nearby fields. I love that line. I'm imagining like some high school field getting called, hey, can the Dodgers use your field? We need to play some games. Federal officials, it says, at the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, as well as the National Institutes of Health, have been supportive of a plan that would adhere to strict isolation, promote social distancing, and allow MLB to become the first professional sport to return. Part of the reason they mentioned as a May return date, possibly June, one of the big things for that is not only sort of the lifespan of this virus, but also when tests would become available, so they're not taking these away from the public. He goes on to say the logistics to pull off this plan would be enormous and cumbersome. I mean, obviously, it involves basically everybody being quarantined for 4.5 months, not seeing their families, etc. And then this is a good part. It says still there is hope among leadership on both sides that the combination of receiving paychecks for playing and baseball's return offering a respite to a nation beset by devastation would convince players to agree to the plan. Basically, you know what? Hey, if they want to get paid, come out, say goodbye to your family for 4.5 months, and let's play. Some of the interesting possibilities he mentions, and then we'll get to what MLB said. Among the possibilities that have been discussed, an electronic strike zone so that the plate umpire can maintain sufficient distance from the catcher, no mound visits, which I'm 1,000% for, 7 innings doubleheaders, which with an earlier than expected start date could allow for baseball to play 162 games. Microphones for players on the field as an added bonus. I mean, okay. This is the best. We mentioned this on Twitter last night. Players sitting in the empty stand 6 feet apart, the recommended social distancing space, etc. It goes on. So this is Passan's report last night, and then here's the quote that the MLB released this morning. They said MLB has been actively considering numerous contingency plans that would allow play to commence once the public health situation has improved to the point that it is safe to do so. While we have discussed the idea of staging games at one location as a potential option, we have not settled on that option or developed a detailed plan. While we continue to interact regularly with governmental and public health officials, we have not sought or received approval of any plan from federal, state, and local officials or the Players Association. The health and safety of our employees, players, fans, and the public at large are paramount, and we are not ready at this time to endorse any particular format for staging games in light of the rapidly changing public health situation caused by the coronavirus. Matt, it's a lot to take in. There's a lot there. What are your initial thoughts and reactions to all this?
So my first reaction when the tweet went out was absolutely, let's do this. I think it was kind of the positive news that everybody is looking for right now. And then you kind of start dissecting it and looking into it, and you realize that May. I mean, I know it kind of is considered a best case scenario, but even that is aggressive.
Sounds insane.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue, excuse me, that it is still borderline even reckless. I mean,
Yeah.
things have changed, and an MLB statement said rapidly. So from one day to the next, things can drastically change from 1 week to the next, much less trying to forecast 1 month in advance.
Yeah.
That being said, I do think that kind of a quarantine situation that was outlined is probably the best way to go, not only for MLB, but the NBA has kind of kicked around maybe doing that in Las Vegas. And at this point, I just think if teams want to have any semblance of a season, or in the NBA's case, maybe playoffs, this is kind of the scenario and setting it's going to have to come under. It creates for a difficult situation, obviously, for players having to be removed from their families in terms of baseball season for an extended period of time. And I mean, even with that, also there's no guarantee. Something could go wrong if one of the players or a stadium employee or a hotel worker gets the coronavirus. It could then spread. And I know that Passan kind of outlined contingency plans within that. That's not a situation you want to have to encounter.
No. Yeah, I love this tweet from Andy McCulloch, by the way. He said, they just discovered this virus can be transmitted to cats, but yeah, sure, they'll be playing baseball in May. I thought that was a pretty good summary of where we are. Yeah, I had the same reaction as you, honestly. At first, I was excited, like, hey, great, let's play baseball. But the word that you used that I think is significant and matters is reckless. I mean, this feels reckless. It feels like a money grab. It feels like Major League Baseball looks at dollars that are flying out of their pockets and saying, we're going to do something reckless, and basically betting on that players will make the same decision they did, which is, are you willing to be reckless in order to be paid? And that's a fascinating scenario. Daniel and I on Dodger Heads earlier this week, we had a conversation kind of about Ken Rosenthal's proposal from a week ago, which was very similar to this. And my thing was, like, what if Justin Turner or some Dodger comes to Dave Roberts and Andrew Friedman and says, I'm not playing. Like, sorry, this is risky. I'm not. Maybe it's because risk, or maybe they say, I'm not leaving my family for 4.5 months. Like, we've got a newborn, my wife's going to kill me, or whatever. Like, I think there's a lot of scenarios that could play out that just the more that I think about this, I go from, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Yes, we need baseball. Yes, we need a respite. Yes, we need a distraction, to not only are there logistical nightmares involved with quarantining an entire, like, thousands of people we're talking about, 30 teams times however many employees, over 1,000 people, but just the logistics of, are players going to say yes? How does the money work? Double headers. I mean, it's not like we would just go back to normal, an abbreviated version of normal. Everything would be different. And the fact that they're saying we're willing to do this for cash rubs me a little bit the wrong way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, those are great points. And logistically, I think one difference between kind of the Phoenix area and Las Vegas is the number of hotels.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different atmosphere. In Phoenix for spring training, you kind of have a lot of smaller hotels, not the big chains that you see in Vegas where they can put, thousands of employees in one or two hotels basically.
Yeah.
Uh, but in a little bit of a lighthearted feel with this, how about, and you touched on it, the players having to possibly sit in the stands 6 feet apart?
Yeah. It's like, hey, rookie, you're in the fourth row, and the veterans get the front row seats. And, I mean, yeah, it's honestly, like, it's so bizarre. Like, that part, I had to read it twice. It's like, okay, electronic strike zone. Yeah, that makes sense. No mound visits. Sure. Double headers. Okay, we've heard of that. On-field microphones. Not sure what that has to do with coronavirus, but great. And then it's like players sitting in the empty stands 6 feet apart, the recommended social distancing space, instead of in a dugout. I mean, it feels like it was out of a PR release, but yeah, I mean, so bizarre. So bizarre. I can't, the optics would be weird. And part of that makes me wonder, like, is it even worth it? This feels, honestly, the more that I think about it, and maybe I'd be curious to hear if you agree, it feels like the MLB sort of dripping this out there and saying, let's see what people say. Like, let's see what the feedback is. Are people into this? Are people thinking we're crazy? Are people thinking we're reckless? Because ultimately, like, one season, if you destroy your brand, like if you go down the route of people thinking you're reckless, if you destroy a game, if you make people feel like the season was unfair, or if players were in jeopardy, or if you just get bad press for the next 4 months because Cody Bellinger's sitting at home and not playing because you've made this decision, and some of the stars make those decisions, or if you make a decision and a bunch of players go the other way and it turns into this war. I mean, it feels like there's a lot of way this goes wrong. So I wonder if they just sort of leak this to say, let's see what people think.
I think that's definitely a possibility, and quite frankly, it was surprising. MLB is not a sport that is touted as being progressive and forward-thinking by any means, and this is something, when the NBA came out, when it was reported that they were considering the Las Vegas scenario, I thought, okay, that makes sense. The NBA is typically trying to innovate and find different ways to move things along. We'll see. I mean, even if they do this plan, I don't see the season beginning in May.
No, gosh,
anyway.
no.
I still think, maybe middle of June is best case scenario.
Yeah, best case. I mean, I keep thinking July 1st seems like in a lot of those charts I see where things sort of are at their bottom point. But I mean, we said it on the show earlier. It's like baseball is the most screwed of any sport because the NBA can finish their season in about 4 to 6 weeks. And NFL, we're talking about September. So really, we're probably in the clear, maybe no fans, but baseball has the longest season, the most number of games, and they're missing the largest percentage chunk of their season of anybody right now. And so I think they're in trouble, and they know it. And I think it feels desperate. It feels reckless. And I'll be fascinated. I'll be fascinated to see. So, well, if you've got thoughts, we'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Comment below. Give us your requests. Send us a tweet at Dodger Blue. We'd love to interact and hear what you guys are thinking. If you're on board with this, what you think it would look like to have guys sitting 6 feet apart from one another in the stands and whatnot. So, we appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you, checking us out and engaging with us. Again, you can check out all of our coverage on this at DodgerBlue.com. You can follow us on Twitter at DodgerBlue1958, Instagram as well. Subscribe to the Dodger Blue YouTube channel. And again, leave us comments. We'd love to hear what you think. So